Hey everybody, this is my reaction to The Dark Side of the Ring, The Many Faces of Luna. I wanted to start off with saying at the end of this episode, they played an audio clip from Luna herself during an interview. When asked if she had any regrets, she said the only regrets she had were number one, not being able to make as big of an impact as she did on women's wrestling. Number two, never holding the world title. Number three, giving up her family for wrestling. Well, Luna, if you're listening, as a fan, I would like to say for two of those. Number one, in my belief, women's wrestling would not be what it was today if we did not have a Luna Vachon. You were ahead of your time as far as women's wrestling was. And I agree with Mick Foley. If you were wrestling today, this is the women's wrestling that you wanted to see and you would most enjoy. And I truly feel like if we did not have women like you and Medusa back then, that we wouldn't have this today. So I thank you. For the second, you should have held the women's title, not just once, but many times. You were a women's world champion in a lot of people's eyes. The people that were lucky enough to see you wrestle and see that you were more than a crazed, psychotic woman walking Goldust or Shawn Michaels down to the ring, or working with backstage attacks, or you were a great wrestler. You had a lot of talent. As Medusa said, you should have been champion. There was no reason for you not to be champion. And now I feel like, guys, I feel like it's becoming a recurring topic. Here we are with another great wrestler who is gone before their time. And once again, as far as I could tell, for her whole life, battled schizophrenia and, by the sounds of it, bipolar. And as we've talked about in the past, back then, these diseases weren't really understood. There was no treatment for them. People would just be labeled as crazy, and they were just let to be on their own and act in these ways because no one knew how to deal with it. And I feel like, in a way, I almost feel like, as much as I enjoyed the character WWF created and the character that Luna created, I almost feel like that may have been too much. Like we've talked in the past, they have this crazy gimmick when in real life that's how they are also. So they never really get out of that thought process. As Mick Foley said, one of the things that he thinks Luna loved wrestling so much for was she was in control when she was in that ring. And that's why she didn't want to give it up, because she felt like that was the only time that she was in control of what she was doing, what she was thinking. And then when she was out of the ring, that's when she couldn't control it. And to go to the point of self-medication, which, as I said, we're seeing a lot of with these dark side of the rings, they end up self-medicating because, but like I said, back then they didn't know. There were no treatments, and if you wanted to work in a business that traveled 300 days a year, that's what you did. You self-medicated, whether it was for pain, for mental anxiety, and you drank. And I think Luna Vachon is definitely a trailblazer for the women of wrestling. As they said in the episode, back then it was incredibly hard to get into and to stay in wrestling, especially for women. Back then, Medusa said it, we had a 5 or 6 person roster for the women's division. That was it, for a whole federation. And all the rest of them were put as valets or managers. To have someone like Sherry or Luna herself, who were so talented, if you got the chance to watch their matches, be resorted to manager is sad. Like, they might have had that one token match where they got to get back into the ring for a storyline, but other than that, they were resorted to standing outside the ring. And like Medusa said, she wouldn't have been able to do that, and she found it, she was amazed by the fact that Luna did it, because Luna was a lot like her in her beliefs of wrestling. You want to be in the ring when you're a wrestler, is what Medusa said. And I agree to that. I feel like that was probably a big part of the drugs and the medication. And like today, talking about the WrestleMania match where they had the mixed tag, today a veteran would be praised for making someone like Sable look as good as Luna made Sable look. But to be told if you scratch or bruise her, you're fired, I don't know if I would take that so kindly. And I'm sure Luna didn't, but Luna kept it professional and did what she had to do, and made Sable look like she was a badass. And to get no praise or recognition for that, I find absolutely appalling. Because like I said, today a veteran would be highly praised for being able to do that, for taking someone who really in essence had never been in the ring and making them look phenomenal and making them look like they knew what they were doing. I hate the fact that she was not recognized for that, and that they led Sable, in my mind they almost did a injustice to Sable at the same time, because they stoked Sable's ego. And for Sable to tell Luna, I don't have to learn how to take bumps because Vince McMahon told me I would be women's champion one day, is absolutely disgusting. And I feel like I almost wish they had Sable in that episode to almost, and I understand why they didn't, but it's like I would love to be able to get a response from Sable. Like, were you proud of that fact? What do you think about saying that to her now, all these years later, knowing the road that Luna had to travel, and as she said, knowing the dues she had to pay, leaving her family, leaving her children, and rubbing it in her face that you didn't have to pay those dues and you would never have to actually take a bump. But I don't find it unbelievable. As I've said in the past, I really didn't care for Sable's character because I think Sable's character showed a lot of Sable. But I think this was a good episode, and I think that it not only shines even more light on mental health, but it shines a light on how difficult it was for women to actually be wrestlers back then. And I feel like Medusa said, we've lost so many people in the industry, not just to drugs and alcohol and steroids, but to mental health itself. And she said, as an industry, we have to do better. And I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with Medusa. I feel like that they do need to do better. The bigger federations need to care more about their talents' mental health and be more willing to help them seek the mental health care that they need. Give them the time off that they need to take care of themselves mentally. And that may, I'm not saying it's going to solve it, but it may help. And I really like the fact that they had Gangrel in this episode, and they had Van, Luna's son, in the episode. And as Van said, we shouldn't be so focused on how she died. We should be focused on how she lived and the simple fact that she's not here anymore, and that's a sad fact. I think that she died way too young, and whether it was a purposefully done suicide or whether it was an accidental overdose, I don't think it really matters. I think just the simple fact that she fought a lot of demons for a long time and no one was there to help her or guide her is the sad fact. Also, I'm curious to the fact of why they didn't have a funeral. I almost agree with what was said about Luna would have wanted the big Harleys leading her hearse down the road with fireworks and a band, but at the same time, that was Luna in the ring. Like Van said, in her real life, she was a very private person, and she would have hated the fact that they made that much of a showing of her funeral procession. But to not have a funeral at all, I think did a lot of injustice to her fan base and her friends. I thought that the eulogy Mick Foley read was done from the heart. I think that he did kind of tap into Luna herself when he wrote that and when he read it. So yeah, if you've never seen Luna's matches, I highly suggest that you go see them on YouTube. She was no matter what she did to her face or her hair, I believe, in my opinion, she was an absolutely beautiful woman. Even with the lightning strikes on her face or the half-painted face, the mohawk, she was absolutely beautiful. And she was a very talented wrestler who loved the business. And as I said, unfortunately, she also, like others we've talked about, suffered from mental illness and never got to seek treatment for it. So again, I will say we need to do more for all the people we know that suffer from mental illness, not just the famous ones, not just the wrestlers, for our friends, the people we deal with on a day-to-day basis. There's people suffering mentally, and some of them don't know how or need that encouragement to try to get help for it. I think that, I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're approaching the kind of world where mental health isn't a red letter on your head or on your chest. It was, I remember when I was a child, mental health was always considered it was a label. Like, nobody wanted to be associated with that label, so a lot of people didn't seek the help they needed because they didn't want to be labeled as someone with mental health issues, because back then people weren't too nice about the names or the labels they gave people. And I'm encouraged that slowly but surely our society is heading towards getting rid of that. Mental health isn't such a stigmata anymore. And I hope that we continue down that path so it's not as hard or not as labeling to seek mental health assistance. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as well. Like I said, I'm happy that they are focusing on a lot of different topics, but it seems like the more we delve into it, the more mental health issues we see coming to light. And I'm just hoping that this helps shine more light on the mental health issues, as I was saying, and we can hopefully do our part in helping get to that point. Alright guys, like I said, if you've never seen Luna Vachon wrestle, please look up her matches. She was absolutely awesome. She would fit well in today's wrestling. As I said, she wasn't a diva. She was an actual wrestler, and as Van said, she was hardcore. She was a hardcore lady. I really enjoyed this episode. Like I said, Luna was one of my favorites when I was young, and I always thought she was beautiful no matter what she did, and I thought she was more entertaining than the so-called models who would flaunt around the ring. But to now, as an adult, to know how much she was held back kind of disappoints me. To know that when she was at the height of her popularity, that she was held back. So to know that we may never have gotten to see the full impact of what Luna could do in the ring is sad, because what she did do in the ring was absolutely awesome. So that is my thought on this episode of Darkside of the Ring. Let me know what you thought of it. Did you get to see Luna back in the day? And I would almost push to say before WWF, because I feel like that's where she was held back and not let to shine like she should have been. Alright guys, I appreciate you watching. I hope I did Luna in this episode justice, and yeah, let me know what you thought, and I will see you guys later. I will be streaming tomorrow night. I might be a little bit late. I won't get home from work till about 7:30. Wrestling starts at 8, so I might be a few minutes late, but I will be here. Alright, love you guys, and I will see you later. Peace. Bye.